There's all sorts of different traits in Warcraft Rumble. As you can see them listed right here, we've got a bunch of different ones that apply to a bunch of different minis. Now, these traits happen in game a lot of different ways. Each mini will have just kind of default traits. They fall under, like right here with the Ogre Mage. You can see traits. If you scroll over a few tabs, you've got ranged, AoE, elemental, and bloodlust. But also these minis can get talents or different abilities to affect other minis on the battlefield. The Ogre Mage right here has a normal part of their description where it says hurling fireballs is always brutal, but this Magi also buffs nearby allies with bloodlust. Now bloodlust is a trait. As you can see right here, bloodlust units gain 33% movement and attack speed. So you have all sorts of different ways where these different traits will interact with each other on the battlefield. So let's just go through these really quick in alphabetical order. First up, we've got Ambush, which is going to be double damage when attacking from stealth. Now, an example of this in game is the Worgen right here. And this is an example of that purple glow on the unit is showing the stealth. And then as they come out of stealth with an attack, that is going to be the Ambush ability that will hit super hard. Then for armored, that's going to be pretty self-explanatory. It is just 50% physical damage reduction, and an example of this in game is the tank, the Molten Giant. Attack root is going to be attacks root enemies, which is going to immobilize them. And you can see an example of that over on the right. As that channeled beam is hitting, that unit is going to be rooted and immobilized. Then attack stun, also going to be pretty self-explanatory. You are going to stun enemies when you attack them. Bloodlust is going to be bloodlusted units gain 33% bonus movement and attack speed. You can see that over on the right, charging into battle with that reddish glow around the unit as they hit that tower, getting the bonus movement and attack speed. Bombard means it's just a simple way to explain that the mini can only attack ground enemies. A popular one right now is going to be the Bat Rider because it's a 2-cost cycle card that is airborne, but it cannot attack air to air. It is a bombard that can only attack ground units, but when played properly, flying from above, able to kind of siege down on units that can't attack back, bombard can be very powerful, especially in the hands of a flying unit like the Bat Rider. But it doesn't have to just be air units. You've got minis right here like the Flame Walker that is a ground unit which can only attack ground, and it will also have the Bombard trait over here indicating that it can only attack ground units. Then Cannibalize is going to consume fallen enemy gold residue to regain health. You can see an example of that with the Ghoul over there on the right side as it starts consuming and healing up life. Carry On is going to be multiplies from slain enemies. As you can see over there with the vultures, as they are getting kills, we get more and more vultures flying in. Charge will enable a unit to kind of close the distance and dash into battle once it comes within range of an enemy. As you can see with Stonehoof right here, dashing into battle and closing the distance on the target by charging in. Then we have Cheap Shot, which is going to be attacking from stealth, will stun enemy units. And an example of this is the Defias Bandits. You can see their stealth right there. Their first attack is going to kind of lock down and stun that enemy that they hit. Then Cycle is just going to be a blanket sweep term that applies to anything that costs 2 or less to play. Understanding this mechanic is very important because having these cheap plays can enable you to cycle through your deck and get back into the rotation you want for a push. And then also you'll have bonuses right here where you get a cycle bonus by putting a cycle card in that slot right here that you see with my Murloc Tidehunters. Dismount is going to be dismount the mount or vehicle as it's destroyed, and an example of this is Ren Blackhand right there. You can see attacking from the Drake. After the Drake dies, he's going to fall down onto the ground, dismount, and continue going. Elemental is going to apply to dealing elemental damage, which is strong against armored units, which is typically going to be tanks. And an example is Blizzard, which is going to rain down all of that elemental damage. But it doesn't have to be just spells like Blizzard. You've got the Blood Mage right here, raining down all sorts of elemental damage as well. Then Fast is pretty basic. It's just going to be a mini that is able to move quickly on the battlefield. Frost is just obviously going to mean frost damage, but the important thing to understand with Frost is that it is also going to apply an effect that slows enemy movement and attack speed. So it's kind of the opposite of Bloodlust, which was going to be giving a 33% bonus to movement speed and attack speed, but Frost is going to be doing the opposite and lowering both movement and attack speed. Hatching is going to refer to a unit hatching into its final form when attacked, and the whelp eggs in game are a mechanic you will see a lot because it is a very powerful and commonly used mini. You place these eggs, they get attacked, and they hatch, and then start raining down a bunch of DPS on things like a tank, as you see over there on the right. Heal squad mate, it looks like this is going to be intended to literally only apply to one thing, because even the description in game, if we tab on over here and we go under traits, it is going to specifically talk about only the mountaineer periodically heals his bear companion. It's not a general description like heal a companion. It literally says mountaineer and bear. So maybe this is something for the very foreseeable future that will only apply to one thing. But yeah, you've got this card right here in the mountaineer that will pump out heals to the bear companion that he spawns with, and that is going to be an example of the heal squad mate. And because they also have this healer status, which is heals friendly units like you see in the Frostwolf Shaman, if I had to guess, they're probably going to have a separate one for heal squad mates, where it is cards that spawn in together, like the Mountaineer and his bear companion. Then they'll have a separate one for healer, which is going to be Shaman and different things that can heal any ally on the battlefield. And there is also hook, which is going to be hooking opponents that are far away and then bringing them into you. The Abomination tank does this, as you can see over on the right. Boom, he's going to cast that hook and then drag in close, where he can then cleave and do splash damage. Long shot is basically just going to mean long range. As you can see over there with the meat wagon, you really have to deal with that because it will siege down a location where you're not able to really counter it with your normal defenses. So just having lots of range is going to apply to long shot. Miner is going to be a mechanic that you definitely want to get yourself familiar with, as it is very important for managing resources during a match. You'll have your normal Kobold Miner that is just a slow melee unit that costs 1 gold, but there's also this upgraded version of the Miner, which is the Dark Iron Miner, that you have to manually place in your deck. But what he's able to do is, for double the cost of 2 instead of 1, is get directly to a location by being unbound and gather those resources very fast. Then for percent damage, it says it deals a percentage of the target's health and damage, and they don't list the spell execute, but I feel like it should be on there because execute is going to cost 3 gold, and what it does is chop off half of their maximum health in 1 swipe. So it is kind of a percentage damage. It's even listed as that under the stats of 50% damage. So one that won't show up on there, but you definitely want to take note of execute being a mechanic in there, where if you've got like double tanks coming your way or something, 2 big targets, the execute spell can be extremely powerful and do a ton of damage in 1 swipe. Poisonous will apply to dealing stacking and damage over time, and is also going to be strong against armored units. Possession means you're going to take control of an enemy unit, and Banshee is extremely powerful because of this mechanic. If you're able to micro properly and place your units properly at the right situation, this can obviously just be a flat out gold gain as you steal a 6 cost unit for the cost of 4 here on Banshee. You run in and you possess them, and they are permanently yours. It's not like a 10-second possession or anything like that. You literally just take control permanently of the mini. Rebirth is going to be a one-time self-resurrection, but only at 50% health, and the Earth Elemental is going to be who has this currently in-game. Revive is going to be squad mates that can resurrect each other, and the Core Hounds can do this. If you look over there, the one up top is going to fall first, but if the one on the bottom stays alive long enough to proc that revive effect, the one up top will be alive again, but also only at half of its health. Siege Specialist is going to mean only attacking towers and bosses. They will beeline straight for that objective, ignoring everything else. You'll end up running into this a lot probably with the Gargoyle, where it will just beeline straight for the tower or the boss and then start doing some pretty significant damage to that objective. And we showed stealth a little bit when we were talking about ambush, but stealth is going to be that purple hue effect onto a mini. That means it is currently stealthed and invisible to enemies until it attacks or is damaged. So you could damage them with a blizzard spell or something if they're in the AoE radius of damage, then that would cause them to lose their stealth, and then your minis on the battlefield could actually target them. Summoner is obviously summoning additional units to aid them in battle as they are on the field. Tank is another one, kind of like cycle. It's just going to be a general term that applies to a bunch of different minis, and that's going to be a high health unit that is good at soaking up tower damage or just kind of going in front of a push to try and keep your DPS behind the tank alive. You're going to utilize that tank to soak up a bunch of damage because they have a much higher health pool. Unbound is also an extremely important mechanic you're going to want to know about, because this can be insanely strong or even overpowered when utilized properly in terms of stealing resources or getting a unit instantly where you need it to join a push or a battle that's currently taking place. The safe pilot is a good example of this, as you can deploy her anywhere on the map and she will slam down as kind of like an AoE spell, and then also be a ranged unit that comes out of that barrage landing point. But then also you've got minis like the Quill Boar, where you can use it to deploy anywhere on the battlefield and steal chests from your opponent on their side of the battlefield in PvP and stuff like that. So definitely learn the unbound units and how to use them effectively. And then the last one is going to be vulnerable, which is unit takes 2x elemental damage. You'll see this sometimes when you're doing like dungeon runs. You'll get a positive effect, but then you'll also get the vulnerable status added. And don't be too alarmed. It doesn't apply to all damage. It is just going to apply to the 2x elemental damage that you're going to suffer. And there we have it, all of the different traits in Warcraft Rumble as of now. If you made it this far, remember to subscribe on your way out, as we've got a lot more Warcraft Rumble content coming your way. Appreciate all of you. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.